A portion of this video is brought to you by the Ridge Key Case. Welcome to my step-by-step guide on how to properly set up your new Mac. Now today I'm going to be demonstrating this on the new M2 MacBook Air. You guys may have seen my recent unboxing video. However, this video will apply to any Mac. So whether you have a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, or iMac, this video will contain everything you need to know for how to properly set up your Mac, as well as going over some essential settings, useful tips and tricks along the way. As always, I will leave all the purchase links down in the description. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first, before we get started, I highly recommend plugging in your charger, as your Mac will either come fully charged, but sometimes it can also come with less than half battery, and you don't want your battery to run out during the setup process, so having it plugged in will ensure that will not happen. Alright, so with that, we are ready to get started. Now, first, once you open your Mac, it will automatically boot up, and after the hello screen, this is what we'll see. So this will have a list of languages to choose from. In this case, we're going to select English, and then we'll click on the arrow here in the bottom right corner. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and scroll through and find our region. So I am based in the UK, so we'll go all the way down to United Kingdom, there it is, and we will select continue. Now here we have the option to add any accessibility settings. So this is useful if you have difficult with your hearing or with your vision or motor skills. It is really great to see Apple include these options for those users as well. Now in this case, we're going to select not now, but this can also always be set up later in settings as well. Now, right here, I'm going to have to connect to the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to have to blur a part of the screen, but make sure you connect to your Wi-Fi or Ethernet to continue the setup process. Okay, so after we've connected to the Wi-Fi, we get a screen that gives you a little bit of info about Apple's data and privacy agreement. Now, Apple, compared to some other companies, is actually quite good with managing your data and keeping it private, so you do have the option to learn more. We'll go ahead and select continue for now. And then this is a pretty essential setting here. Here we have the option to either use Migrate Assistant to back up from an old Mac, a previous Time Machine backup, or even move files from a Windows PC. Now this is great if you want to quickly carry over some essential files. In fact, if you are coming from a previous Mac, you can literally have that Mac next to your new one, and it will then carry everything over, not just your files, but also your settings and account information. However, if you are coming from a Windows PC, it will only carry over the essential files such as your media, so photos, music, and your movies that you may have as well. Now in this case, I'm going to start off fresh. I want this Mac to be completely empty and set up as a new machine, in which case we're going to select Not Now. And here we have the option to sign in with your Apple ID. Now, if you do not already have one, it is possible to create one here, but if you do, you can log in over here. Now, I highly recommend doing this. Now, while it is not essential, an Apple ID is required to purchase or download things from the App Store, any music or media. As well as this, it is also a great way to store things in iCloud, for example, your contacts, your mail, calendar, and ensure that that all syncs across all of your Apple devices, including your Mac, iPhone, or iPad if you have it. So I definitely recommend creating an Apple ID if you do not already have one, and if you do, this is the moment to log into it. And then you may have to use some two-factor authentication. So in this case here, I got my iPad next to me where I've just received a 6-digit code, which I'm going to go ahead and click allow and then type that in. And here we have the terms and conditions, which of course we all read and scroll through thoroughly. And now it is time to create a new account for this computer. Now, based on your Apple ID, it will have found your name as well as your account name. Both of these can be modified if you like. We can also change our account photo here, so we got a couple fun ones to choose from. You can have a Memoji. We also have some of the more standard versions here. For example, here under suggested, I typically like to go for the globe. I don't know why, but that's sort of the one I like to go for. But then later on, you can actually put a personal photo in settings, which I will show you later on. And then here we have the option to create a password. This kind of goes without saying, but make sure you do set a password on your Mac and make sure it is also something that is not simple or easy to guess. So I recommend either multiple words, abbreviations, throw in some numbers, capitals, even some symbols to make it harder to crack. So I'm going to go ahead and type mine in, and then you also have the option to add a hint if you like. All right, so once you've typed in your password and a very not so useful hint, we also have the option to allow you to use your Apple ID to reset this password Now, I have two-factor authentication on my Apple ID, meaning that the ID is very secure, in which case I do suggest turning this on in case you ever get locked out of your machine. We'll go ahead and select continue on the bottom right here, and we are now creating your account on the Mac. Okay, so here we have a quick screen talking about Find My. Now, Find My is really useful as it will allow you to locate your Mac in the event that it gets lost or stolen, as well as giving you the ability to share your location with your contacts of your choosing. So definitely make sure that is activated. We're gonna go ahead and continue that. Okay, so because I have used my Apple ID on previous Macs, it will actually remember how I've set up these settings on those other Macs, and we'll do it exactly the same way on this one. And this is really useful if you're coming from a previous Mac or already have multiple Macs in your household. However, in this case, what I am going to do is just customize these settings, as chances are you won't have that screen and this will be your first Mac. So with that in mind, first we have the option to enable or disable location services. I definitely recommend enabling this, as certain apps will require this to function, whether it be maps or, for example, geotagging in photos, as well as, for example, sharing your location with contacts. So I recommend turning this on, and you can of course fine-tune this in the settings later. And then we have the option to share analytics with Apple or with developers. I prefer to not share either of these, so I will uncheck both of them. And then we have the option to use screen time. Now, screen time is useful. You may know this already from your iPhone, where it will give you a breakdown of how many hours you spend on your device, as well as that look at which apps or websites you visit as well. So if you're trying to limit your screen time or just basically get a good overview of what you're doing, I find this to be useful. And then we have Siri. Now, while Siri may not be the best of digital assistants, I do find it useful and actually use it multiple times per day, primarily to create reminders, make a call, or to, for example, add an event to my calendar. So we are going to enable Ask Siri. And for that, we will have to say a few phrases. So first we have the option to set up Hey Siri, which means that with that activation phrase, it will automatically activate. So let's go ahead and set that up here. And I'm just going to have to repeat the phrase, Hey Siri. Hey Siri, what does the rest of my day look like? Hey Siri, play some music. All right, pass the test with flying colors. Siri is now ready, so it will actually recognize my voice, and then whenever you say the trigger word, it will bring it up. So let's go ahead and select continue here. Now we do have the option to also share analytics with Siri to share your audio recordings. I'm gonna also select not now for that, but you can choose to share them with Apple if you want. And then we'll select continue. And here we have firewall disk encryption. Now these are both things that I definitely recommend you turn on, especially the first one, in which it will basically protect your disk with an additional password, encrypting all files on that drive just for security reasons and protecting your own data. I definitely make sure that this is on. As well as this, we also have the option to enable iCloud to unlock your disk. Again, if you ever get locked out, I like to use this feature as well. And then here we have Touch ID. Now this will only apply to more recent Macs, which will actually have the Touch ID sensor in the top right-hand side of the keyboard. And you may have used this on iPhones previously. Touch ID is great to quickly log into your Mac or authenticate payments or access your saved passwords. So definitely make sure you set that up during this process. So we'll go ahead and select continue. And what we have to do now is place our finger. So I'm going to choose my index here, place it on the Touch ID sensor. And you can see as I lift and rest my finger, the infograph here on the screen will slowly fill. There we go. Now I have to get the edges of my finger. So just sort of do all sides of the finger. And there we go. Touch ID is now ready. Now you do have the option to also save more fingers. For example, I like to save both of my index fingers, but this is something that we can do later in the settings as well. And then here we have Apple Pay. Now, Apple Pay is useful. Some people think that for Apple Pay, you specifically need an Apple card, but this is not the case. For example, here in the UK, we don't even have Apple Pay yet, but I can still use it with all of my existing cards, and it will just mean that paying and checking out for things will just be that much easier and quicker. And here we are almost at the end. Here we have the option to choose your look. So we can either go for the light mode, which is the one that we are currently in, or we can change it to dark mode. And as you can see, that will completely change the operating system. And then we have my favorite, which is auto. Now what this will do here is it will automatically switch between light and dark mode depending on the time of the day. So this is the one that I'm gonna end up using. Go ahead and select continue. And here we go. All right, so the Mac is now completely set up and ready to use. So first of all, here we just have a prompt to allow Calendar to use your location. In this case, I suggest selecting OK. We can also see that it has automatically carried over accounts that were linked to my Apple ID. Again, this will depend on whether you already have an Apple ID or not. So in my case, because I do, it will then carry those accounts over as well. But here we go, guys. So the Mac is now ready to use. Let's go ahead and take a look at some essential settings and tips and tricks. But first, let me introduce you to the Ridge key case. If you've been watching my channel, you will know that I use several products from Ridge. So when they came out with the key case, I had to check it out. Just like the Ridge wallet, the key case comes in a range of colors and build materials. So here I have the black aluminum, as well as my favorite, the carbon fiber. But why use a key case? Well, a key case is the minimal approach to having a full keychain. Just bring the keys you need. In this case, you can have up to 6 and eliminate that key rattle and have it all in a very neat portable package. And like the Ridge wallet, the key case is built to last and uses smart design to maximize its functionality. To give you an example, here we have a familiar cutout. Simply push up to bring up all of your keys and access them instantly. I also like the clip on the back, and you also get 2 rings in the box to allow you to attach additional things like a key fob. To me, this really is the perfect solution to carrying keys. To learn more, be sure to head to ridge.com/Dion and use code Dion at checkout to get 10% off your order. Thank you to Ridge for supporting the channel. Now back to the Mac. Okay, so first I want to go over some essential keyboard shortcuts. Now, the first of which is to access Spotlight. Now, Spotlight can be accessed via the menu bar here by clicking on the little magnifying glass icon. However, a more quick way to access it is to press and hold Command and then press the spacebar, and as you can see, that will bring up the same menu. Now, Spotlight is very useful as it allows you to search for anything on your Mac, whether it be documents, even websites, or other saved files as well. Okay, let's open up an application. So let's do Safari here, and let's go to, let's say, google.com here. And to close this application or window, you can either press the little red icon here in the top left that you'll find in every window, and this will close the window but not quit the application. So as you can see, if I press this, you still see this little dot under the Safari icon, and this will mean that the app is still running. So let's open up another window here. Let's go back to Google. And the second option is to click on the Safari name here in the top left-hand corner and then click on Quit Safari. Now, this is one way to quit an application, and as you can see, if we press this, the dot will disappear under the Safari icon, which will indicate that it has been quit. But a faster way to do this is to press and hold Command and then press Q to quit an application. So as you can see, it has closed the window, the dot is gone, and the app is now closed. Let's say you have multiple windows open. So I'm going to go under File here and select New Window. And as you can see, I've got 2 open here on my desktop. So of course, to close a window, I can go ahead and press the red X. However, a faster way to do this is to press and hold Command and then click on W. And this will close just the window and not necessarily quit the application. So Command Q is to quit and W is to close a window. And then if you are coming from a PC, Control C, Control V will be familiar, and the same applies to Mac. So let's say I take this word, I can go ahead and press Command C to copy and then Command V to paste that word. Now, the next keyboard shortcut is probably my favorite of all. So for this, what we're going to do is just open up a few different apps. So let's say I'm going to bring up here the App Store, settings, and Safari once again. So of course, when you're normally using your Mac, you will have multiple apps open, and you can switch between them by clicking between them here in the dock. You can go back and forth to open and switch between those apps. But a much more efficient way to do this is to press and hold the Command key, and then you want to select the Tab key, click on it once, and this will bring up a view of all of your open applications, and you can cycle between them by pressing the Tab key. Now, once you've come to the application that you want to switch to, let's say the App Store, let go of the Command key and it will then go back to that application. And a really quick way to switch between your 2 most recent apps, simply quickly tap both the Command and Tab key, and as you can see, it will then instantly cycle between them. I love this feature and use it countless times every day. Another useful feature is taking screenshots. Now, there are 2 different commands for this, and the first is to press Command Shift and then 3. And this will then take a screenshot of the entire screen, and as you can see, here it is on the bottom right. We can then click on it to annotate or to share it. We'll go ahead and press done here, and all screenshots, as you can see, will be saved on the desktop. So you have it right here. But let's say we want to take a screenshot of a specific part of the window. How about like this little small overlay here? So to do this, we're going to press Command Shift and then 4. And as you can see, the cursor icon will then change to sort of an arrow or like almost like a sight kind of thing. And what you can do is just click and drag any area of the window that you want to select for that screenshot. So what I'm going to do is just quit all these apps here. Again, we'll press Command Q. There we go. Quit them one by one. And here we have our 2 screenshots on the desktop. So first we have that full screen one. And then secondly, we have that more focused screenshot as well. And if we want to go ahead and delete them, we can click and drag them and then bring them to the trash can, which you find in the bottom right side of the dock. And now let's move on to some of my favorite gestures. And the first is Mission Control. Now, Mission Control is another way to quickly switch between windows. And to do this, you're going to take 3 fingers and then swipe up on the trackpad. As you can see, this will then show a clear layout of all of your open windows and applications, and you can quickly cycle and switch between them. So simply swipe up to bring up that menu, like so. Now we're in Mission Control, and you can click on whichever app you like to quickly switch between them. Actually, while we're on the subject of Mission Control, let's swipe up and enter that once again. What you can then do is move your cursor to the top of the screen, and it will then show you all of your open desktops. As you can see, we currently have just the one, but we can just press the little plus icon here, and we now have multiple desktops. And you can really add just as many as you like here, so we can just add a couple. And now we can basically separate our apps into different windows. So what I like to do is, let's say I have my work on my main screen, and then I'm listening to some music in the background. So I'm going to take the music app here and then click and drag that over to the second desktop, and that way it's not taking up space on my main desktop, and I have it separated. So let's say I've got my work files here, my work applications here, and then I've got the music over here on the right. Now what you can do is you can, to switch to that second desktop, swipe up to Mission Control, and then drag up, and then move the cursor up, and then click on the second desktop, and you can see we're now in the second desktop here. But a much faster way to do this is to use 3 fingers on the trackpad and simply swipe to the right or swipe to the left to instantly switch between desktops. This is a great way to declutter your desktop and basically manage your windows. And then lastly is the app library. So to access this, we're going to take 4 fingers and this time sort of pinch outwards. So basically think of zooming out on your iPhone screen with 2 fingers, but then instead use 4. And as you can see, that will bring up your app library, allowing you to see all of your applications. Again, you probably have more applications on your computer than you would have showing in your dock, and this is where all of them will appear. You can also from here add applications to the dock. So let's say I use books often, I can click and drag this down, and this will now be added in the dock as well. And then to remove one, simply drag it out, let go, and it will then be removed. And then before we move on to some essential settings, I want to show you just a couple more tips. And this one here has to do with window management. So if we take a look at any window on your Mac, you will find these 3 icons in the top left. So we have the red icon, which will allow you to close the app. We have the yellow icon, which will minimize the application. As you can see, it will then minimize right into the dock, and then we can click it back to bring it back up to the foreground. And then we have this green icon, and this will allow you to enter full screen mode. Now, if we go back into Mission Control, you see we have these desktops that we created earlier. It will then see Safari as its own full screen desktop. And again, with 3 fingers, we can swipe and cycle between them like so. So if you're focusing on just one application and want that to take up the entire screen, this is a really useful feature to have. And then to bring it back and minimize it, simply move your cursor to the top of the display to bring up the menu, and then we'll press the green ball once again to make it to take it out of full screen. And then over here in the menu bar, this is a great way to quickly access certain settings on your Mac. You can see we can control, for example, the brightness. We can turn on your connectivity settings, switch your focus modes, and you can also customize this. So what you can do is press and hold the command button and then click and drag these icons to rearrange them accordingly. So for example, I like to have the Wi-Fi furthest to the right and battery furthest to the left, so I can quickly see this when I'm using my Mac. So as you can see, I have created quite a collection of screenshots here on my desktop, and a great way to organize this is a feature called Stacks, and this is something I highly recommend you activate. So to do this, we're going to make sure that your cursor is on the desktop, press the Control key, and then click on the trackpad to right click, and then we click on Use Stacks. And as you can see, this will instantly organize your screenshots and all of your files on the desktop into separate categories depending on the file type. So as you can see, we just sort of get a stack of the screenshots. We can then click on it to expand and then click on it once again to minimize. And you can see that really declutters the desktop. And now lastly, I want to go over some essential system preferences or settings to change on your Mac. So the first thing we're going to do is click on the settings icon here. So you'll find this in your dock. As well as this, you can also click on the Apple logo in the top left-hand side of the screen and click on System Preferences. And first, we're going to go into General. And here, once again, we have the option to change the appearance like we did during the initial setup process. Here, as you can see, that gives you an idea of what the dark mode looks like. I like the dark mode, but really only at night or when it's late so that the screen isn't as bright. But during the day, I find the light mode to be just a little bit easier on the eyes and nicer to read. And then beneath that, we also have the option to change your default web browser. Now, I know many people like to use Chrome. I love using Chrome. I do use Safari as my default, but we'll have Chrome as a secondary browser. So here you have that option to change it. And then once you have more browsers installed, you will see them in this list down here. And next, we're going to go into the trackpad settings, as there's a few things that I really don't like in the way it's set up and things that I change as soon as I get my Mac. And the first is the secondary click. Now, you remember earlier when we set up stacks on the desktop, we had to select Control and then click on the trackpad to secondary click. A much quicker way to do this is to just use the bottom right corner to access a secondary click, and there it even shows you in the video. That just makes more sense. Click the bottom right hand corner and that will bring up the secondary click menu. Just beneath that, we also have the option to allow tap to click. I love tap to click. Sometimes I want to really click on the keyboard, but if I'm just using my index finger, it's just nicer to be able to tap and then enter menus like so. And then just beneath that, we also have options to change your tracking speed, which is how fast your cursor moves, as well as the firmness of the click. So if you change it to a more firmer, that means you have to apply more pressure on the trackpad to click. And we can also set it to light to make it click more fast. I like to set it to light as I find I can click more quickly and it's just a little bit nicer to use. And for this next setting, we're going to go into the battery menu and we're going to make sure that this setting is turned on, and that is to ensure that optimized battery charging is activated. Now, what this will do is it will look at your charging habits and it will charge from 0 or however low your battery is up to 80% depending on what your battery life is at, and it will then wait to charge the remaining 20% closer to when you typically unplug the charger. Now, Apple also does this on iPhones, iPad, even Apple Watch, and this is a great way to prolong the health of your battery. And then just above that, we have a slider to determine how soon after inactivity you want your display to turn off. So definitely for the sake of battery and just your general life of the computer, set this closer to 1 to maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so, but definitely make sure that it is not set to never, as having your display and your computer running at all times will lessen its life. And then lastly, we're going to go into the display settings here in the bottom left-hand side. And here we have the option to activate or deactivate automatic brightness. Now, I like to use automatic brightness on all of my devices except for my Macs. When I'm working on my Mac, especially when I'm editing videos or photos, I want things to remain constant. So I like to turn it off and then just use the buttons here on the keyboard to cycle and switch between my brightness. By the way, the screen on this M2 MacBook Air is really great. I'm going to cover more on this in my review, but I'm really impressed by this display as it is definitely brighter than the previous version, so that's really great to see. And then just beneath that, we have the option to turn on or off True Tone. Now, as you can see, if I turn it off, the display gets ever so slightly cooler, and then when I turn it on, it gets a little bit warmer. And you can see this especially when you look at the lighter parts of the window. And that's exactly what this does. It will adjust the temperature of the display based on your surroundings. And this makes the display just a little bit nicer to look at and easier on the eyes. However, when you are editing photos or videos, I do suggest turning this off, as this will impact the color accuracy slightly. But generally speaking, I like to have this on as I find this nice to look at. And that's it. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This may have been a slightly longer video, but if you are new to the Mac or if you've just gotten your Mac, then hopefully this helped you out with not only setting it up, but also showing you some of those essential settings and keyboard shortcuts, and a few tips and tricks along the way. I might consider making a more in-depth macOS guide. If that is something you guys would like to see, please do let me know in the comments. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if to see more content like this. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below. And if you haven't seen them yet, I highly recommend watching my M2 MacBook Air unboxing video, as well as my M1 Pro MacBook Pro review. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.